so excited to be guesting on the Scrapbook and Cards Today blog with you guys today. This is Patricia Roebuck, and I have a traveler's notebook spread that I'm going to create in a pre-made notebook. I'm going to use some pattern paper, some rub-on, some stamps, some puffy stickers, some of that double-sided tape, and some embossing powders that I quickly showed there. Now, the first thing that I want to do is I love pattern paper. I love the texture it creates. So I picked a pattern paper that I really love the base of it already. I'm just going to enhance it a little bit more with the rub-ons and the stamps. And that rub-on and that stamp, as you can see, they have a similar look to them. I like to coordinate my products like that and see what complements each other. Now I trimmed the pattern paper to completely fit on the left side, and then I did about 1/4 of an inch trim and then about an inch trim. And it creates a nice little continuous repetitive pattern onto the right side. And I'm going to create, when I adhere it, you'll see, I'm going to leave a little teeny bit of a gap in between. I just really like that added texture it's going to get. Now I'm going to do the rub on here. I'll put the paper back together at the seams, and as I do the rub-ons, I usually just rub it and then lift it up and see if it's adhering to the paper, and if not, I just rub it a little bit more. And then when I peel it all the way off, I just rub it into place. I'm peeling a few more of these off because this really is going to go well with this project. Now, as you can see, the pattern paper, I am creating more of the background of that on when it's not attached to the notebook. It's easier because I have a nice flat surface. I adhered those rub-ons that you just saw directly to my notebook, and I had something on the other page. So it was a tad bit tricky. I used a cutting mat to put underneath it, and it didn't come out perfectly, but I knew that I would be covering it up with the photo and some of the paper and some other products. So just keep in mind that when you're doing stuff like that, you can do it, but sometimes it's a little bit trickier. That's why I really love the versatility of being able to work off page like this, whether it's on a piece of pattern paper like this or a trimmed piece of cardstock. You can still get as creative as you want in your pre-made traveler's notebook, knowing that you can just as easily just adhere that to your pages. Now I added that little text rub-on top of that other rub-on at the top, and now I'm going to add some of these scrapbook.com floral images. This is the solid circle image. I'm going to use that in 2 different colors, and the reason for that is because I'm going to use one of the floral designs that mimics some of the designs in the rub-ons. I'm going to use that on top, and I'm going to emboss that in a contrasting color, the opposite color. But before I do that, I know I want some of the smaller solid circles here. So I'm going to use that in a color that is very similar to that flower rub-on that I have at the top. I want to create a little bit more contrast and pop. Now I used an embossing type powder to kind of go to dab all over this background to help with the static, because now I'm going to start embossing. So here I'm going to use that complementary color that mimics that other ink color on top of that kind of mulberry purpley color, so it'll be a nice contrast. And the embossing powder helps a little bit, but sometimes I find even with this, sometimes that dye ink may not be completely dry. I use a little brush to kind of help. I am okay in this case if I get any little extras that are hanging around, because I really do want to create a nice beautiful texture, and this pattern paper has a really nice mixed media look to it. So I like this overall look. Now I'm going to use the opposite color on top of these circles that are in that kind of tealish color. Now one of them did not cover completely well. That's okay. I think I'm going to come back and cover that up just a tad bit. My ink pad may be getting a little bit dry there. And I use that same embossing powder to stamp some of the smaller images around those smaller solid circles. And now I'm going to fill in with some more of the rub-ons to dot around, create little clusters. Overall, I really like this very kind of shabby chic kind of look to it. I'm really liking how this is coming out. I'm going to use another one of the smaller images, but I'm going to use this time in black ink. I want to create a little bit more of a pop. Now I want to adhere this to the notebook. Now when I do my adhesive on that far right side, I do a straight line. I want a solid piece of adhesive, and I'm going to run my finger along that seam because I want to make sure it closes. I don't want that pattern paper to lift up. So if you get your adhesive very close to the edge, it won't lift up on you. And now I want to use double-sided tape on this smaller strip that's a little shy of 1/4 of an inch strip. This is about 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape. I'm going to use that right along that edge because I'm going to get it pretty close to the edge, but not quite, because like I said earlier in the video, I want to have just a tiny bit of a gap to create a little bit of texture. But I don't want any of that left side of the pattern paper to lift up. I want this to be able to open and close very easily. So now for this strip, I can just easily add just a little bit of adhesive and adhere that into place. So now I'm just going to place my photos, and it's time to decide how I want to place the sparkle die cut title. I was kind of wanting to do the whole repetitive going across like I have the pattern paper on the left and then continuing to the right. But I kind of like it vertically here on the left, and the reason why is because I feel like it is on a background that is a solid pattern paper background as opposed to partial pattern background and then the white cardstock. I feel like too that the white title balances nicely with the white right side. I like to use my liquid glue in that container with the steel tip for intricate die cuts like that. And then I used that die cut postcard that has that same gold accent of the rub-ons. I really like how that balances that whole right page. So I typed my journaling onto that to add underneath my photo. And then I'm going to add these puffy stickers. I like how they add another layer to the center of my flowers, and then I'm going to add some of the stars, dot those around. I like the look of the green star here at the top instead, so I'm going to kind of shift that around. I want to still create a little bit of contrast and texture with these. And I love this white puffy sticker that says around here. It's white, it goes with the title, and it balances even more with that right side. And then I really like this words have power on this puffy sticker. I think it goes perfectly with the positive vibe of this whole spread. And then the last thing that I'm going to add is a die cut bow to the top there. So this really finishes this. This was such a fun project to put together, and I thank Scrapbook and Cards Today for having me on their blog. You can check out the blog for more detailed photos and a list of the supplies that I've used. Thank you so much for watching.